Hello everyone, Adrienne here and welcome to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I make videos on makeup related content, especially eyeshadow palettes. They are my favorite. I'm also a licensed esthetician and a bridal makeup artist, so occasionally you will see a little bit of the inside scoop of how I run my businesses since they are beauty content related. But today is an eyeshadow palette that I picked up during the Sephora sale. It is the Huda Beauty Wild Jaguar palette. This has been out for a couple of months now. When my Sephora first opened in the Kohl's, I knew that I wanted this palette when I saw it in person, but I was on a no-buy at that time. So this is one of her Obsessions palettes, which are the 9-pan palettes, and it does have a mirror, so I'm going to try not to blind you with that. But I love the color story of this, the cool tones. I mean, you can do a little warm look with this gold shade here. I'm going to show you two looks. The look I'm wearing today, I actually did record myself applying it. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some swatches. I'm going to swatch this palette live. I did just wash my hands for this little swatch party, so my knuckles may be a little more ashy, so don't judge me. And I swatched this first shade here, so I'm going to put it on the outside. Make sure that came in. So that's what that shade looks like. And yep, I do have some ashy knuckles going on, but hopefully this is coming into focus. Let me wipe that finger off and go into the next shade, which is this mauve lavender matte shade. And this was one of the things that made me love this palette. I love tones like that. And it swatches well. That's a really pretty color. It's got good intensity. So, like that shade. And the next shade is going to be this gold shade here. See how that goes on. I don't typically wear a lot of gold, but I do think that's a pretty shade on my complexion. Moving on to the next, this deeper shade here, which is kind of like a burgundy. Look at how rich that is on my finger. I'm going to start a new row up here for that one. So that's what that shade looks like. Hopefully it's coming into focus decently. And moving on to the next, the stunner of the palette, the lightest shade in the palette. I guess the gold is fairly light too, but this is a beautiful duochrome here. Kind of looks like lavender and gold mixed together in this duochrome. I don't know if you can see that on camera with me moving my hand around. It's shifting any, but it's a really pretty lavender duochrome shade. I'm going to swatch it again with my finger and see if maybe the finger swatch you'll be able to see a little more. Gosh darn, it's not really showing up even in the finger swatch, but this is kind of a duochrome color. And moving on to the next shade, this shade in the palette is pretty unique also. I don't know if I've touched the pan so much that maybe you can't see the speckles in it, but it's got little black speckles. And it's a gorgeous metallic shade. That's what it looks like when the speckles mix in with the lighter pewter type metallic shade. On to the next shade, it's another matte. It's the neutral looking matte in this palette. I haven't had a chance to use this, so this swatch will be my first time touching this. It's pretty light for my complexion. It's right here. So I would only use this for like a brow bone highlight probably. Now I'm going in and swatching this black shade here. And it's a good quality black. It swatches really well, that black shade, and it applies well. For the last shade, this one here. build that up a little bit more. And that is what the last shade looks like. I'm going to go ahead and kind of move my hand around. Hopefully the autofocus will keep up with me so you can see these colors. And that's the color swatches of this palette. So I did want to get in with the first look in this palette and create it off screen. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a little video clip up of the first look I created last night when working with this palette. To create that look that I was wearing last night, I went in with this lavender mauve shade in the crease and transition and just blended that out. And then I went in with this burgundy shade here, burgundy brown shade, and I used that directly in the crease. And I wanted to use the majority of the metallics and the glitter toppers. So the glitter topper shade here, the first shade, I did go in the inner corner and I packed that on. I do wear MAC paint pot and Layin low, so that does make like a kind of tannish white base on my eyelid, so it did stick to that. I had to use quite a bit of it and keep building and building to get it to cover the opacity of the primer, but you can get that to build up to where it will just stick on, and the silver metallic flecks will form like an actual color and take away any of the sheerness. So if you pack it enough, you can get that. And then I went in the center of the eyelid. I went in with this shade here, and I did have to pack it on quite a bit. When I put it on the first eye, I wasn't so impressed with the quality of it. I put it on with a wet brush, and it seemed as if it wasn't packing enough, and so I kept getting more of it out of the pan and putting it on. And then it started to texturize my eyelid, so I took my finger and I just kind of pressed it on there and held it for a second, and it seemed to soften. Maybe the silicone in the formulation warmed up a little bit, and it did soften, and it didn't look as creasy as it did and texturized. So it did smooth out a little bit, but I did have to pack that quite a bit to build the intensity. And so for the next eye, I put a little bit on with the brush, and then I knew to just take my finger and go in with it to get the intensity that I wanted with this. So both of these shades may work better with your fingers, because I did end up applying this also with the finger quite a bit to get the intensity built up. So it wasn't an effortless look to get the intensity that I wanted, but I found that once I went in with the black matte on the outer V, I needed a little bit of a transition between the metallic shade and the matte. So I did go in with the speckle shade here. The speckles in there, those black speckles, make it really unique. I did end up liking the look, but it wasn't really effortless. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I created the look that I'm wearing today, and then I will be back with some final thoughts on my first impressions on this palette. To start this look off, I've already primed my eyes with MAC Paint Pot Layin Low, and I'm going to, once I get this thing open, dip into this shade here. And this is a BH Cosmetic brush from the Marble collection. Blend that into the crease and transition. I think I'm going to take this all the way up to the brow bone once I get most of the depth of color built up in the transition. I don't want the brow bone to be as deep as the transition. And this seems to be pretty pigmented, and the color is going on pretty easily. Take a little bit more of that, put it on this eye. Ooh, Ooh, I'll be blending, blending, blending in that spot. Got a little more than I wanted on that inner corner. That's okay. I'll just blend to my little heart's content. I really don't want to be over blending with the palette because I would like to do a couple more looks today, but we'll see what happens. It looks like where I put the majority of that pigment, it is kind of grabbing, but I think that's more so the primer because the paint pots are pretty grippy. Sometimes when you don't go in with the light hand to set it first. Okay, now that we have that shade on in the crease, I'm going to go in with this color here. And this is a Real Technique brush. This one's awesome for people with hooded eyes. Just taking that in the crease. And this shade is building up really fast, so that's nice. Gonna do the same to the next eye. Wow, I can't believe people are still out riding motorcycles right now. It's only like 37 degrees outside. Little nippy for a bike ride, but I guess when you're gonna be on lockdown from the cold for the next 6 months, pretty much, you do what you want to do. Okay, and I'm going to have to take a larger blending brush and smooth out these edges because I have made a mess right here, but that's okay. I'm going to go back in with that same brush that I started out with and blend out these edges. That blended pretty nicely and it did it quickly. I'm all about the quick looks and not having to blend a bunch. It's not just not wanting to take the time to put all that on, but depending on what kind of eye products you use, if you use products with retin-A's or retinols in them, that's really irritating to the eye. For the shimmer shade for this look, I'm going to go in with this color. I think I want to use this Sonia G brush, and I'm not sure. This is the Builder 3. I'm going to try it first dry and see how it applies. Not bad. I don't think I'm going to have to spray the brush. Use more of a patting motion to get this on. I was hoping this one would go on fairly easily, and it is doing that. Take a little more of that and put it on the other eye. So has anyone else picked up any of the other palettes in the Wild collection? That Chameleon one looked really pretty. I think all of them look pretty. It's just whether or not I want to spend $29 on these palettes is why I haven't picked up more than this one. It's not like super expensive, but to me $29 for a 9-pan palette is still quite a bit, depending on what the quality is going to be like. ColourPop gets you spoiled. You can get so much from them that's decent quality at reasonable prices. So anytime I'm taking other palettes into account, I'm a lot harder on them. And of course, I think I want to go in with the black here, just looking for a brush that I want to put that on with. I'm going to use the other Real Technique brush in that crease brush set. I like to use this to pack on color. You just have to be careful on the outer V because it gets out of control fast because it packs that color on quickly and intensely. So going back in and just deepening that burgundy-ish shade closer to the crease. and trying not to overpower any of my other shades. We'll see once I get finished building this up if I need to do like maybe this shade here as a transition from my matte to shimmer, since that lavender looking shade is so light. I don't want there to be a stark contrast in the metallic shade to the matte. I keep wanting to do circles with this brush, and this is not a circle brush. If you get it, it is pretty much a packing brush. You can kind of like do a windshield wiper motion like you see me doing here, but as soon as you try to do what I was just doing with those circle motions, that's when you will have a for sure mess. But I seem to want to act brand new every time I pick the brush up like I don't know that, because I'm impatient with putting eyeshadow on. And that's one way that I figure out what quality shadows I like, because if they can't go on quickly and I gotta blend and blend and work with it, I don't want it. I don't feel like it should take you all day long to get a good look. And I think I am gonna take my ring finger here. Let me wipe some of the lotion off that I just put on. Maybe I should take a brush and do that and not stick my finger in this shade here, because I don't want to get hard pan. It is kind of unique how it's got the little black speckles in it. I didn't really want to use this shade for this look, but I'm using it more to make the edges of the black matte a little more metallic so they blend in. Don't think it's quite even. Okay, I'm going to stop here and go finish the rest of my face, and I'll be right back. Now that you've seen how I created this look, my first impression on this palette is basically that it's an okay palette. It creates a really pretty look. I will be revisiting this palette because I have not done a look using the gold shade. Like I said, I'm not really that big of a fan of gold shades, but I do like what that shade looks like on my complexion. So I will at some point hop back in here because I want to see what it's going to look like. I may try it with this shade just to see what it'll look like mixing that mauve lavender shade with that gold, just out of curiosity. It does seem like it might be a hot mess, but I am curious to see how it's going to turn out, because I feel like I'm not really all that interested in using that shade with this and this. When I said that bone looking shade on my complexion isn't really my thing. I think it's going to create just your average gold type look that you get from any other palette. So I don't feel like that was the unique part of this palette. The cool tone shades is what I was most interested in when I picked this palette up. As far as quality with this palette, I don't feel that it's worth $29. I got some pretty looks out of it, but like I said, that first shade and the last shade in the palette, to use those, I felt like I had to pack them quite a bit and kind of finesse them to get them to do what they needed to do. And being that Huda's price range is typically a little more in the higher end range, I think it's a pretty palette, a beautiful color story, but not worth $29. So if you're going to pick up the palette, I would do just as I did and wait till it goes on sale somewhere at Sephora or on her website, because I did pick it up during the Sephora VIB sale and got 15% off of it. It's just that we get so good a quality products from brands like Juvia's Place and ColourPop that when a higher end brand tries to slip just a mediocre product under the radar, it's quite unacceptable, because you can get such great performing products from those brands for, you know, half the cost or next to half the cost of the palettes that they're charging for. So am I going to keep this palette? Yes, I am. Will I probably pick it up to create another look? I will definitely like to see it, especially that first look that I created the first night with all the pressed glitter. I don't think it's really pressed glitter, but the topper shade. I really like that for a special event type look. So I can see where this would be a palette that I would keep in mind for its color story. To me, it is unique enough to do that with. But is it something that I'm just so impressed with from her brand? No. So I am not sure that I'm going to pick up any more of the palettes from this collection because I don't want to just have average palettes for $29 or even at the sale price that I got this for. I still think it's pretty pricey for what the quality actually is, but I hope this first impression helped give you an idea of if this might be a palette for you that you want to pick up. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and help support the channel by subscribing. I'll see you guys soon.